gotta go to something if I heard with some. You're kind of just done.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. We're gonna get started since it's noon. And we appreciate you being here. I'm Lauren Sparrow with the City of Springfield and the current Vice President for Springfield City Club. We have a couple other board members here, Paige, and I'm Leslie.
Lee.
I'm totally Lee and Lee, sorry. I'm totally blanking out on names at the moment, so I appreciate that.
Who's Leslie?
Yeah. It's like, that's not correct. We have Chief Caven here today to talk about the history of Eugene Springfield Fire, and also the Springfield Fire Levy. So just before we get started, a couple housekeeping things. We do have a check-in or a sign-up sheet. It's the kind of fluorescent green one on the table. If you aren't getting our email notices for our meetings, please put your name or an email address down and we'll make sure you get on our list. We did just switch to constant contact yesterday, and so hopefully if you were already on our list, you got that new notice and it didn't go to your spam. I see some thumbs up, so great to hear that. We also have a membership form. If you're not a current member of City Club and would like to join, feel free to ask any of us board members or fill out that form and we'll get you as a member and on our list. Additionally, we have a form on there. If you want to frame a question, you can use that just to kind of scratch and edit, or you can just raise your hand. We're pretty informal and we'll call on you at the end when we have questions. So to get started, Chief Caven has led the Eugene Springfield Fire since 2022 and has been a member of the department since 2007. With 23 years of experience in fire service, Chief Caven has advanced through the ranks, starting his career with the City of Cottage Grove in 2002. Additionally, he spent 2 years on the board of directors for South Lane County Fire and Rescue and nearly a decade leading the Lane Professional Firefighters Association. If you read his bio that we had online, you also would know he was a chocolate maker in a previous life. Maybe he'll talk a little bit about that at the end, share some details. I'd be curious what kind of chocolate he made. It did say you used coffee beans in your chocolate, is that correct? Okay, so maybe we can press him a little more and learn some secrets here. So without further ado, please welcome Chief Caven.
Thank you, Laura. Thanks to the City Club for opening up this opportunity to talk about our fire department and talk about the upcoming levy this November. So just as we frame up why we're asking for a levy, it's really important to kind of talk about what is Eugene Springfield Fire. We're in Springfield, we're talking about a Springfield levy. We have a fire department that starts with the name Eugene. What exactly is going on? And so my goal is to help frame that up a little bit, so folks understand where additional investments come from, where additional investments go to. But so when we think about how Eugene Springfield Fire is structured, that's a big part of our discussion. We'll kind of talk about how we stack up, again, back to how our funding goes. But Eugene Springfield Fire is kind of a DBA, right? We are a shared service between the cities of Eugene and Springfield. And that partnership began in really 2007. And you heard in my bio, I started my career in the city of Cottage Grove. Within the first year of working there, we merged to become South Lane County Fire and Rescue. I lateraled up here in 2007. Within a year, within that first year, we began our partnership with the City of Springfield. So mergers is the thing I do, apparently, whether I wanted to or not. But in 2007, we began what was called the 3rd Battalion concept. After years of strange dynamics in emergency service delivery, the boundaries were removed between our cities, and we started to respond the closest unit that's appropriate for the call, making sure that just because your house is on this side of I-5 or that side of I-5, that you had to wait longer because this city live-ins units weren't available. So, that set us down a course of evaluating in 2009 what the future of this fire department could be. And through that, a number of options were put forward. But all of them recognized that we needed to come together first and remove some of the barriers and boundaries of the organization. So that was done in July 1st of 2010. The Eugene Fire Chief was sworn in as the fire chief for the city of Springfield. That really kicked this off. Chief Murphy was ready to retire, and the opportunity presented itself. The agreements were put in place. From there, various administrative functions were brought together, business systems, training, fire marshal's offices, between there and 2014. 2014 was the last significant change in how our fire department works. And that was the blending of the workforces, the merging into one labor union, and the ability to work wherever. So your neighborhood fire station here in Springfield might not have any Springfield employees in it at all, on any given day, because we've been in this so long that even our employees don't necessarily know who works for them, which is a good. It took a lot of years to get there, but the most important thing in this whole discussion is we're still two city departments, still have two budgets, two councils that set policy and priorities for us, two budgets, all of those things. That's a challenge for us. We're continuing to work through that. But why it's important to be very diligent in how we talk about that right now is the fact that the levy that we're going to talk about in this presentation is specifically for fire services in Springfield for the availability and response reliability here. Our service area is quite large. So we obviously protect the cities of Eugene and Springfield, and then several districts. So our contract districts include Eugene Rural, the Willa-Kinsey Fire District, which has contracts with both cities, Bailey Spencer, Zumwalt, Rainbow Water, River Road Water, and Glenwood Water districts. And so in total, that's about 94 square miles. 20 of that 94 square miles is Springfield and its contract districts, Glenwood Waters, and Rainbow. We protect about 260,000 residents in total, 60,000 being over here in Springfield. And we protect $62 billion in property value. That doesn't include infrastructure value, but it's a big, large service area that we protect. So like I mentioned, our staffing and our budget, they are split up between the cities despite the blending of the workforce. And the investment basically breaks down. It's a $90 million budget, about $25 million of that 90 comes from Springfield contract districts. It's ambulance service revenue and it's levy. I think what's unique about how we're structured here in Springfield is of the $24 million budget that we have, 50% of that comes from other revenue sources. Again, it's the contracts, the ambulance service, and then the levy makes up a small portion of that. How we stack up, and why our organization works well the way it does is the large area we protect, the number of resources that when both cities pool in together that they bring across the region. But we are the fourth largest fire department in the state of Oregon, the second largest municipal organization of a fire department, and Oregon's largest public ambulance transport provider. That's an important key as we work through ambulance challenges and reliability and federal funding for Medicare and Medicaid in that space is, as the largest public provider, there's a lot at stake, a lot on the line, as we transport about 24,000 people to the hospital every year. When we talk about this organization, our biggest success comes from the depth of our workforce, the ability to fill gaps when the system's busy, move resources around as necessary, have standardization in how we recruit, how we train, how we develop our promoted classifications, the equipment we use, the tools we use. That makes us more efficient as an organization. It allows, whereas historically maybe you would have to add resources in border regions, we're able to leverage each other's resources to make all of this work. And then the interoperability is significant. We went from having most everything be laid out different, set up different technology to reutilizing all this technology today. Challenges continue. If you've been following, we've been in the governance review process since 2022, since February 2022, determine what's the best course forward. Most everybody agrees why we did this and why we're together and we're better together. Where it gets really hard is understanding what's the best way to organize that for long-term strength, viability, and now as all local governments are pressured for how to provide funding, and particularly for public safety. How do you structure that and make sure the cities are able to sustain their current service levels in other spaces as well? And so we're hoping to see that conversation move forward this fall. Because again, despite where we are better together, having two employers, having two different systems for everything that we do behind the scenes, fractures over time. Under the weight, under the changing and evolving landscape that we're operating in. And again, back to the public funding challenges that I mentioned, all of those kind of pile on well, how do we do this? And are there things that we're being asked to provide that are funded through specialty mechanisms in one city that another city doesn't have? So those are the things that we look towards, the unified form of government for the fire department. And if you haven't been following along, what those things look like is the potential for a fire district, which you may have seen discussed out in the community a little bit. There hasn't been any direction from the councils on that to this point. That discussion hasn't come forward there. The establishment of an intergovernmental entity, which is effectively Eugene Springfield Fire elevated into a space of oversight from the two cities, but a single budget, recognized as a single employer, having some tools to be able to do things more efficiently, contracts for service, which can be challenging to figure out between the two cities, and or the potential to go back to two independent fire departments. So again, that conversation will be ongoing throughout this fall. So when we think about the challenges that we have and why this levy is important to us is, as we are today and funded with the levy that staffs the 5th fire company in the city of Springfield, we continue to be strained by staffing, the growing wildfire problem, public health crisis in access to care, which leaves EMS and the emergency department kind of holding the bag when it comes to people's access to care. And it's, more and more reliant on local governments to fill that gap until we can figure out how to, one, provide access, and two, fund that care. So those are all things that we consider. And so Measure 2371 is a levy for renewal. We've had a levy here in the city of Springfield since 2002 that's funded the 5th fire company. The company that we talk about isn't the newest station. It's at 28th and Centennial there by Walmart. Back in 1999, the city was growing and developing in the Gateway area more and more. We recognized that there needed to be a fire station out there. And even before 99, I think the station was actually built in 99. But once that was planned, the land purchased, and all the process to get that going, as we saw measures 547 and 50 really hit their stride in our area and changed the public funding landscape overnight. And so at that time, the decision was made to move the crew from 28th and Centennial to Gateway and find a way to fund that 5th fire company back. And the city council at the time did. They established a levy. It was successful, and we've successfully renewed it for, I think this is our 5th total renewal. This time the levy does ask for an increase. And it's important to note that that increase comes to cover the full cost of that fire station. Since its inception, the city council has had a shared goal of not leveraging the levy forever to fund this fifth fire company. So over time, during good times, the budget was increased on the general fund side to reduce reliance on the levy. So the 12 firefighters that it takes to staff that fifth fire company, 24/7, 365, we're down to 7 right now, that the levy paid for and the general fund's paying for 5. As we try to figure out other funding challenges and pressures within the city, a decision was made, a recommendation from financial task force, that the city fully fund the services that the levies are designed to provide. So we're going from 38 cents per thousand with a proposed rate of 53 cents per thousand. And again, that is to add the 5 additional positions and all of the other technology costs and operating costs of that fifth fire company. And so that's what the levy is designed to do. That's the rate. It's an increase of 18 cents or 14 cents, 15. From 38 to 53. And so, what's it mean if it doesn't pass? You know, we know that here in the city of Springfield, if you look at a map, it's a very long city, right? And the stations are laid out to cover it. And Springfield is really well covered today with its 5 fire stations. When I look at the map and think about first response reliability, it's in pretty good shape. It's growing. Glenwood, discussions out Bob Stroud Parkway, that will strain us into the future. But today, we're in good shape. Without any one of those companies, or fire engines, evenly deployed across the city, we would be really challenged. Not only providing service in the neighborhood whose fire station closes, but also the ripple effect across the city. Springfield has, like I said, 5 fire companies here. It takes 5 fire companies for us to meet the national standard staffing for just a small house fire. It's 4 engines, a truck company, the on-duty chief officer, and an ambulance. So that's everybody. So for a fire to happen, everybody needs to be available, or we're pulling resources in from Eugene. If we were to lose our 5th fire company, every single fire would require a fire company from Eugene all the time. And there's a concern that can put a strain on our relationship, on what each community is bringing to the table proportionally to its population. So that's it in a nutshell. This levy is designed to provide stability and funding for the fire department, fully fund the 5th fire company going into the future. I'll reiterate, this levy is specific to fire services in Springfield to its service level. Both cities retain full control over the investment and service level within their communities, and why you may see differing tools being used to help support service. With that, I'm open for any questions, and after these questions, I'll tell you a little bit about John.
Did you bring any?
I forgot that was in the bio. I would have. I may or may not have a couple 100 pounds right there.
I have a question.
Just-
So, let's, we can back up a little. So the budget for the stations is based on ambulance fees, the local option levy, and the contracted services,
And the general fund.
and the general fund. Okay, so 4.
Yeah, so the general fund's about, and that includes the contracts, but it's about $14 million. The other thing comes from ambulance revenue and
Contract services. But that's in the first part.
yeah, so the contract services, the contracts with Glenwood Water, Rainbow Water, and Willa Kinsey come to the fire department through the city's general fund.
So the folks who we're providing outside of the boundary of Springfield, like the East Rural, Bailey, etc., did their percentages increase lately to help offset some of the general fund money that's gonna go away?
So, the other ones, Bailey Spencer, Zoom Wall, those are contracts with the city of Eugene.
Okay, so we just get Glenwood, Rainbow. and
Glenwood, Rainbow, and Willikinzie paying to the city, and both cities pretty much establish their contract rates the same way, and that is determining the total cost of the fire department this year and proportionally dividing it. And so those rates are set on an annual basis through the contract. So as our costs go up, so do theirs.
Okay,
Rainbow Water relies on the levy as well, and will fund their portion of the
station.
fire contract.
Okay. So I have a personal interest in this. I've lived in the same house on Centennial Boulevard for 35 years. Station 3 is only 8 houses away. So everyone in this room, if you love me, just oh yes. Just thought I'd throw that out there. And I've been talking to all my neighbors and sending out postcards and such because our neighborhood really cares about it. So know that I'm working hard behind the scenes. You're welcome. Move on.
We appreciate that. And there's that interesting fact, sad fact. That in the months prior to the levy, or year prior to, there was a fire with rescue, with some children involved, the station was available. Month before the levy was voted, there was a fatal fire. Both of these involving children and misuse of materials, but a block or two away from Station 3, and unfortunately, a young child died in that fire. So it highlights the need. These don't happen all the time, but we had 3 fatal fires in one of our station's first 2 area this July. 2 of them resulted in the rescue of 3 unique individuals, and so staffing is important. Response times are important when it matters.
Yeah.
The increase in the fire levy this year to fully fund that station, does that alleviate any of the general fund dollars, or does that close a funding gap that we already had? And so we don't need to put more dollars from the general fund.
So it helps preserve general fund dollars for other programs, both within the fire department and externally. I mentioned the ambulances, not because it's a part of the levy, but it's increasingly becoming a draw on the general fund. Those cities are having to supplement ambulance service and are forecasted to do so into the future. So this was one of many tools the council is working through right now to close a general fund gap and ensure stability in the general fund going into the future.
You mentioned, right, that not every firefighter is an employee of the city. There's kind of a mix there. Is that true for Station 3 too, or all of those Springfield employees?
It's everywhere, right? Each city is providing the same number of firefighters to the system they were before we merged. And the roster and staffing doesn't matter where you worked before. The one thing that gets challenging behind the scenes is at the end of the year, when we look at the overtime, because one city's firefighters might work most of the overtime. And that's got to get reconciled after the fact, but it's absolutely reconciled.
Yeah, I guess what I'm asking there is, if the levy doesn't pass, I assume like these 7 employees supported by it are laid off. Are they working in Station 3 right now, or are they working all around the cities?
They're in the system, right? And so if we had a fire engine shut down tomorrow, we're short staffed already, so they would get laid off. They would be sent somewhere else for staff purposes. Where that becomes crucial is how we budget and how we measure the number of firefighters in the system and where they're coming from, and therefore the cost savings you're trying to achieve by closing a fire station. We have to test that out in the budget. So it's complicated to say the least, but it really doesn't matter once the station's closed where the folks are coming from. It just means that Springfield is providing that many less firefighters to the system.
So you're gonna lay people off based on seniority though, right?
We would, yeah, cause it's one contract, again, for us, a station closure, doesn't result in, loss of employment to any of our firefighters. When you look at our overtime budget last year was about $10 million. We need more people. And so that's where the budget cut would really hit a service level. Not the individual firefighters until someday in the future where we can achieve, full staffing.
Can you talk a little bit more about some of those workforce shortages? Is that normal in comparison to other like peer fire stations? Is there a reason that we have a hard time?
Everybody's suffering from it. We had a period of time, where, recruitment was a little bit harder for us. And that was where we used one workforce to do all the work. We called it dual role. So every paramedic was a firefighter, every firefighter was a paramedic. In 2022, we started to pull away from that, one, to access a workforce who doesn't want to fight fire, but wants to provide emergency medical care. And two is to attract folks that want to be firefighters that don't necessarily want to work the ambulance all the time. That has become a very difficult, it's the reason why, despite not being the largest fire department in Oregon, we're still the largest public ambulance transport provider. Is one, it's a very technical discipline, it gets more so every year, so is firefighting. And when we have a reduced workforce of people we can access, those people are gonna look at systems where, they're gonna work really, really hard, long hours, tough work, and an ambulance a lot, is a recruitment challenge. And we started to pivot away from that. One, we saw an access to, again, workforce we hadn't previously tapped, we wanna do EMS. And we're able to access the workforce. It was, you're gonna come work and as a firefighter and not be on the ambulance all the time. We still provide a great EMS service and will continue to do so in the future. But that helped us in that market. Everybody's experiencing a shortage. I mean, we're going full circle. 25 years ago, 30 years ago, you came onto the fire department, maybe you were working in the mills, maybe you went to night school as an EMT, and you went to night school to become a paramedic. And it was relatively easy to do. Now those programs require degrees. Back then, fire department would sponsor you. Like, hey, you wanna go to paramedic school? Yeah. You go work nights, you still support your family, still do your thing. You become a firefighter paramedic. Now you have to commit to college. It's 2 degree. It takes at least typically 3 years to get it, ironically. That's a real challenge. Fire departments are more and more looking at how to fund sending their firefighter EMTs to paramedic school, or their EMTs to paramedic school. We don't have the funding for that, but we continue to talk about and explore how to stop. Because the workforce isn't there. I think we've done a really great job in the last 20 years. The government and state government, I get funded studies into the impacts of cancer, making sure that's covered as workers' comp for us. Behavioral health, suicide, those things. This job comes with an unbelievably heavy toll. And when you look at folks and you ask what they want to do, or they want to give that, they can easily research what it's like to be a firefighter. And so it's not just, oh, it's really cool, my friend does it, or my family member, and I go do it. They're like, the young man that was here, that's I was saying apprentice, but not.
Marketing intern.
An intern, with wastewater, I shared that his dad's a lieutenant, like Oswego, and he chose not to go that path because of the risks of the job. Kids have access to all the information they want, they understand about the world, now, and they make informed decisions about risk more than I think we did. And I can tell you that firsthand, but. So,
Chief, as you talk about strain on system and some of the things that the fire department is doing, or, all of you are doing to creatively mitigate some of those strains, you shared quite a few really interesting ones on Monday night. Want to touch on some of those?
I'm trying to remember it.
You had, yeah, I'm right there.
Like, our apprentice program, those things? for
Oh,
staffing?
yeah, and you have some deflagration, I'm not saying that word right, we just have all kinds of different approaches to helping to
Yeah. Okay,
minimize,
yeah,
minimize
I got you.
some of the strains on the system.
Yeah, I'm trying to get into the rhythm of
Yeah.
that, so, back to, one of the things that we were trying to study and get ahead of. Was recognizing, despite our size in our work group, there's a fire district up in the Portland metro area. That's about our size, our staffing, and they run about half as many calls for service as we do. Another fire district on the other side of the freeway up there, twice our size, runs the same number of calls we do. And so we started to study, what are we sending our resources to, that we need to? And how do we get a plateau on that and or a reduction? What we've actually seen is 1,000 less calls that fire crews were sent on in Springfield last year than in 2014. And that wasn't because we weren't getting resources to those calls, or that they were being left unanswered. It was the right resource to the right call. Alternative resource deployment. As we look at how we fund or how we staff our fire department in 2020, the 2021 session, the legislature funded a apprentice program for 3 fire departments in the state. Took us a little while to get there, just with our rhythm of recruitments. But we established our apprenticeship program last year. We hired 14 firefighters in the community. And they helped us in September, once they were ready and had their qualifications in place to promote to the rank of firefighter, to take our forced overtime from about 250 shifts in July to 57 in September. We've onboarded almost 150 people across the system, in various ranks from basic life support, EMT, and paramedic positions along with firefighters. And so we continue to find tools to mitigate not only the call volume, but improve and increase the workforce. And we're today or tomorrow, a posting should go out for lateral firefighter, which is we had struggled. We lost people to other departments for several years. Now through the work to establish a contract that adds another shift of firefighters to our fire department, that helps reduce the impact of the heavy call burden in the schedule. And so it's a nominal decrease in the average hours worked from about 51 to 48 hours in a week. But what that means is when we're fully staffed, our firefighters can come to work for 24 hours and then go home for 72 before they come back again. And so it's a good program. That's one of the things that's helped us with that lateral discussion and people asking about coming to work here. I talked to a firefighter with 10 years of experience from Washington 2 days ago, who was asking about that and asking about where we're going and the things we're working on. And so word's out, we're taking the right steps despite being in financially challenging times to improve where we are in our workforce. But I think our last kind of constrained point is how we plan for the future. That's the one challenge we have in our governance structure is long range planning is important, but grounding in 2 very different communities' needs and expectations, like how to establish that plan. And we're just kind of waiting for that answer is like, what is it we're planning? So that will help us build the infrastructure under the gains that we've made in the last couple of years to improve the situation. Thank you for that.
You're welcome. So I just want to say again, as we are facing all of these different budget challenges, my appreciation for the creativity that you and your entire team, and I know how important that recognition is for your team. So just that creative look at all of the different aspects of the system and ways that you can flex it to kind of meet some of those challenges. My appreciation, I just want to share that with you again.
Do you have a question?
Yeah, a question. You said that you're now the largest public ambulance provider in the state. Is that Eugene and Springfield together?
Yeah.
And my background is that I helped rural Metro get first contract with Eugene Fire to do the non-emergent transport. So I'm wondering what the ambulance transport scene looks like now. Are you losing money? Or is it a revenue source? Can it ever be a revenue source?
At this time, it can't be, and that's a fact that everybody's facing. So we do still have a private provider here that takes non-emergency work, and it's Mid Valley Ambulance, which was Metro West back then. They almost left us. We had to modify our contract a year and a half ago to keep them here. Part of it because we were making changes to stabilize our own system, and they're looking at the long range growth. However, like when we're out of resources, we have South Lane, we have Lane Fire Authority available, and that provider often staffs ALS ambulances for the work that they do for us. Meaning we're able to call upon them to go to calls on the street when we're out of resources, which for ambulances, it's a lot. Our ambulances, our ALS ambulances, in fact, when we talk about adjustments and things that we've done, they're running about 1,000 less calls per year each in 2024 than they were in 2014. Now, that's because we added basic life support ambulances into the system to help out and grow in that space. But at the same time, in 2024, they spent 3,500 hours on the wall at the local hospitals. So unavailable to respond to calls. So there just seems varying pressure on the system, and the fact that we're 83% of our ambulance transports are for Medicare or Medicaid, the overwhelming majority of those being Medicare. And those are capitated. Medicaid pays about $100 a transport, Medicare, you know, just above or below 500, depending on the call type. There is a program for Medicaid patients that helps supplement the difference between the cost to deliver the call and the reimbursement. What's that?
Is FireMed still active?
FireMed is a illusion.
Is it?
Hands down, it's a illusion for us. I mean, it's good for the community. It's important to have programs like that available. But
It's still available for?
it is. Yeah, it is. But what's important is most of the people that really think about FireMed and they're thinking about their health and the frequency you might need to use it. If you're on Medicare or Medicaid, you don't need it. So that's the challenge. I mean, people still choose to buy it to support, you know, in a way that they can, but yeah, ambulance reimbursements are down. We rely on about 20% of our ambulance revenue comes from a federal program administered by the state of Oregon called GEMT that helps with the balance of that. That program is going to sunset in 2026. And when I watch federal government right now, I don't have a ton of faith that we could see that go away. And that would be devastating for us.
So it used to be that a long time ago, before they closed the loophole in the county codes that had to do with ambulance transport, it was possible for a private ambulance to cherry pick rides basically and actually make money doing long haul ambulance. So is there any way that can be tapped into by the department? I guess you just don't have enough ambulances to send a long distance.
Yeah, we flat out just stop sending our ambulances out of the area. So when we're out of ambulances frequently, we can't afford to have them going to Salem or Portland or those other places. So our private contractor does it for us, but they're barely making their margins to stay here. And so the reason that loophole got changed is some of them were in for the best interest, but overhead was really low because you had no regulation, you know, you could just throw somebody in an ambulance and go for it. But we don't do any of that work anymore. Pretty much no fire department does that work. Because we're an expensive resource with, you know, full-time public employees. And so bringing that on, it doesn't balance.
One other question, does the county alternative response, the cahoots-like response, I can't remember the proper name of it, that the county.
Mobile crisis.
Mobile crisis, does that help to take any part of the load off the fire department?
Not in particularly. I mean, in some ways we end up on some of those calls. I mean, they're providing very important service. But what we know with Cahoots in Eugene, you know, that program being paused, I guess the best way to put it, for the moment. The fire department's call volume is down. And that was, from a space of, they were able to access people and weren't, they didn't know exactly where to go with them, like, their only option was to call the ambulance. And that's a part of the healthcare system problem. It's not that we need more or need less ambulances, that people need appropriate places to go. The 911 system and ambulances in the ER typically aren't it, but it's all you have, right? You can't get a same day appointment if you don't have transportation. And so we're piloting programs, alternative response, provider response. Those are programs funded by the legislature in 2023, following the closure of the University District Hospital to help fill those gaps. And we're starting to see that evolve. And so, but mobile crisis isn't really designed to take those transport calls out of the system for us.
Well, I wanted to ask, well, it's kind of a two-part. First part is about the utilization of volunteer firefighters and how well you can kind of leverage that. And I realize when I say that, and it makes it sound like I don't know what I'm talking about, but there are so many small rural fire districts that are staffed entirely by volunteers. And of course, in the news this week, we just heard about what happened to Howard.
Hauser.
Yeah. And which is heartbreaking, but I really love the interview because when they interviewed the guy in charge down there, he said that other fire stations are coming in and sending things to help. And he said, but that's the fire service. That's what you do. You kind of fill in. So the second part of that is how much of the burden on your staffing comes from deploying to other areas and districts and helping out in other things, which is just part of what everybody does.
Yeah, it's a great question. So volunteerism is like 10% of what it used to be. When I look at our area, everybody that was around us that was volunteer fire departments have 24 staffing. Ocean Pleasantville, 24-hour staffing, McKinsey, 24-hour staffing. Lane Fire District 1, which is now part of Lane Fire Authority. As I understand it, none of their volunteers currently even live in their district. Our workforce is having to work longer hours, more than one job. Employers aren't necessarily located near where the fire stations were. So the model of what's left is really people who are going to school or in some of those smaller communities that just don't have much of a choice. Hauser comes to mind, Lorraine, places that's not very busy. But with the rise in, really meteoric rise in calls for EMS, and the training expectations is a huge burden on people to volunteer their time. So for our system, as busy as it is, people would struggle to volunteer. As far as our responses out, we have automatic aid agreements all around us to support. We do deploy in times of need, other places or emergency conflagration acts. But those are really small in comparison to what our kind of normal operation is. But our, we've got 250 staff members, and so if a few are gone helping out somewhere, it doesn't really impact the whole. So the other challenge we have, and we've been thinking about, wildfire will change the face of how we think about volunteerism. And it is. But what we don't have is any staff capacity to get everything in place to help lead, run, recruit, and manage a volunteer force. Or what you start to see more of maybe in the news and other places is the CERT program having an offshoot or being partnered with something called Fire Corps. And that is, how do you have people in the community to help out should a wildfire be impacting one area that they can support? And so we're looking and figuring out how to do that, which is all that figured out yet. She left, she let me ask your question.
So, I want to understand a little bit more of the relationship or the balance between ambulance and EMS versus fire. I know at one point it was growing. One of the things, in some of the work I've done, I've heard from the rural districts, that's really put a strain on them because they're doing far more calls for EMS versus fires and that. And I know at one point it was a higher percentage. So has that decreased in relationship to the calls in this area?
I would say No, unit utilization has decreased, as we've said, there are certain calls that don't require a fire company response. That puts a heavier workload on the two people on the ambulance though, so that's kind of what we balance when we don't go. But it's about 85% of the work, it's where most of the growth in the last 20 years has come from. But with wildfire and other challenges, batteries, lithium batteries, all those things, like fires are on the rise. When we were all came in and told us like, fires will decline over time, maybe as a portion of the work, yes. And the volume of fires is increasing for us.
And the type of fire.
And the type of fire, and the toxicity of the fire, that's what's unbelievably, how toxic, just the built environment is before lithium ion batteries show up. So we're combating that and the risk of our firefighters.
So what do you need to get the levy passed?
Yes, so.
I can't say that.
Yes, oh.
Yeah, so what I need, is I need our fifth fire company fully funded. And I need folks to share this information you got today. These are the facts. There's nothing odd, nothing weird. It is just fully funding that company. The costs have increased while after several years, the council was trying their hardest to lower the burden on the Springfield residents. Got to a point where we can't, and we need to pay for that fire company. So that information is in here. Spread the word, share the word, ask questions if you have them, happy to answer them. I just have to stop short of actually advocating.
I advocate for you.
That is the
But I
fact.
have a president of the union and me who lives on the street, please say yes.
But one of the really critical, looking at, I live in Eugene, not Springfield, but it's absolutely critical for me to be sure that I'm talking to my friends in Springfield, that they're voting on this and that they're passing it, because it's going to pull resources exactly as you said. If that station is not staffed, then it's gonna affect the whole region. So I think that's a pretty important.
Yeah, we're busy. We're incredibly busy fire department. Again, the way Springfield's laid out, if you would all follow, some of the information the labor union, has been putting out over the summer about resource availability, you'll notice that Battalion 3, which is Springfield, runs out of fire engines quite a bit. Not for long periods of time, but and Eugene does it because one, the number of resources, but also it's pretty circular. And so there's always somebody available in the area. And there's a couple extra companies in each of the battalions in Eugene, which helped with that. But saw the news, the fire at 69th and D this summer, small grass fire, fence fire, somebody lost their home because the Thurston station was staffing an ambulance. And the station at 48 and Main 14 was the first response crew to respond to somebody having a stroke. And so that left the closest water being Fifth and Centennial here at Station 4. And so that's what happens when there's a link missing in Springfield in particular. I mean, I was, worked for City of Eugene, but served a number of assignments here in Springfield. When I was a battalion chief over here, that used to stress me out all the time. Is a couple companies out and I gotta figure out how long to balance without pulling somebody from Eugene over to provide standby, so we get those calls covered. So, and when everything's okay, Springfield's really well staffed and it starts to get busy. It is a huge strain. But I'll tell you, and today when I listen to the radio is our crews find them. There's the occasional unfortunate outcome, like 69th and D, where just the timing was terrible. They listen to the radio, they pay attention, they leave calls that more stable. When they're higher risk things happening, they get it done, they cover it. So we have to tell the facts of what it would be like without, but they continue to do as much as they can, but this is what will happen.
So this is a 5-year levy.
Good.
And I listened to all the challenges that we currently face and how they will contain pots and everything. I'm trying to understand. So what assurances do we have that this passes? And I'm not against for everything. Well, if it passes, that we're not gonna face in 3 years or something, some crisis and fire and that. Even though we passed this levy that could jeopardize positions or service.
Yeah, I mean, the fact of the matter is, the FY 26 budget was passed with a temporary service reduction at Station 14 in it. That's been addressed. So that's the tenuous space we're in, right? Fully fund the fifth fire company, that's what the levy's for. I think the broader part of your question speaks to the rest of what, the council's working on, for long-range financial stability. And I think our governance discussion plays into that a little bit. So my hope is we solve governance soon. And that has some bit of permanent funding that helps address serial levies and things like that, to try to provide their basic level of service. And there's a couple options, I think, that can do that. Yeah.
So I have a question about wildfire, since I've spent a lot of time this past year with a group. I'm trying to figure that out. I'm trying to understand when the fires get to the point then local resources are called upon. So how is that decision made locally? So the fire marshal, the state fire marshal calls and says, I need service, and then what process do you go through here before you say, yeah, we can do that, or we can't?
Yeah, that is a fantastic question, and it's a space where, one, I would acknowledge the legislature's work to improve funding to the state fire marshal's office to be proactive. So that maybe we can stop these fires before they become declared emergencies. That's the goal. So what happens? The landscape as it is today, and so I'll add that enhanced staffing. Our most recent example is Moon Mountain, in Eugene. It was a fire that actually we didn't know about for 14 minutes. It was mislocated and dispatched to a rural fire agency. Until one of our crews cleared a call in Springfield and said, hey, that looks like. We went, it was 40 acres by then, but we got to take care of, but we called for help. We called for a helicopter. And we called for what's called immediate response, which historically would have taken a conflagration act. I got 2 teams of 5 fire companies each, task forces into the area. Really not about, we had the fire mostly stopped at that point, but we knew on the 4th of July, still really dry, windy. What we didn't want is like not have the resources should it flare back up. So we used that, kept that fire in check. It was fantastic. That request goes to the state fire marshal's office from us, through a regional coordinator with them, and that is deployed and paid for, which is great. If all local resources or those are committed, whether it's here or somewhere else, you work with your regional mobilization coordinators and you declare, or request a conflagration declaration. That goes, basically from whoever's in charge of your jurisdiction. For us, it would be the city manager, signs that goes up to the state, goes to the governor for approval. They go down a list every year before wildfire season. We plan, we tabletop, and we sign up. We have 2 pre-designated task forces. We know when we're up. We know what we need to send, so that when we're called, now, when it gets busy, then they start piecemealing stuff together, and then it's a call like, hey, what can you do? And we start doing this phone a friend thing to put something together, to pull rigs in from the coast or whatever. That's usually the 3rd task force out of Lake County would be scrapped together like that, or a midwinter task force to go to California. But otherwise is pre-designated, predetermined and planned for, by May of each year. So it is a very well established program. We're getting really good at it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And again, very crucial that the increased wildfire funding, because our partners, and even this last year from ODF, the answer to us is you call for the resource, we're gonna send it, we're gonna cover it. Because aerial assets, you hear it on the federal level. I mean, despite all of the politics, the executive order on wildfire and getting that coordinated into one, that will help us. The focus on aviation will help us. And our state fire marshal's office and the Oregon Department of Forestry is, you need it, call for it, we'll pay for it. Before that, when I was coming up through this, it was like, you don't dare call for a helicopter unless you convince somebody else to pay for it. Or bulldozer, and they're all saying, you need a bulldozer, you need a helicopter, like, call it, use it. We saw it on, Spencer's View in Eugene. It's like right from my house where I moved my wife for this job. She's not happy about watching that go down, but no question, helicopter on the way, fire is not going anywhere. You know, and so it's important. There will be a day where we won't get it. But unbelievably, dry, high heat, east winds. If we can't get to that fire fast, now we're back against the wall, but the coordination across, having responded to the holiday farm fire. Coming down off that hill thinking we went through Oregon's worst wildfire, and then finding out when we got service again that there's no help coming. Because it played out 5 times across the state that night, and still can't reconcile that, but all the infrastructure were in place that. It's well oiled, there's first handfuls of operations to go out, staff were good. Our firefighters went sisters almost immediately, spent 24 hours straight pushing fire around houses. In unbelievably challenging conditions, and only 4 houses burned because of the experience and the coordination.
It's great, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna ask the last question, and it's more just. What makes you excited? We've talked about a lot of challenges. What makes you excited about the future of firefighting and ambulance service, and where do you see in the next 5-10 years, the department?
The workforce is what made me most excited, and not in a tongue-in-cheek kind of way. We've asked a lot for them. I came up through the ranks here. I came up through the challenges and the merger confusion, the hard work on the ambulances and lack of resources. Fought publicly for ambulances at one point, and it almost felt like we were never going to get out of this just busy and churn and losing people. We lost a lot in the first decade of this merger. But what we did is we asked the workforce to trust us. We have a leadership team built of people who came up through the ranks here, who understand the system, who understand what we're asking people to do. And our workforce has responded to that, being creative, sharing their experience on the street, paired with intuition and data to make the necessary adjustments. But above that, we also asked them to step up their game and train more, to shoot for excellence. And they're doing it, and that alone is helping morale. You know, and so it's watching where they go and where they drive our fire department. You know, the lateral discussion that I mentioned, that's them talking to their friends. I mean, people watch what we do, and people are drawn to busy systems where they feel supported. Because there's firefighters, they hate change, they hate the way things are, they hate being busy, they hate being slow. You think we're full of hate, it's the best job in the world. So that I'm excited to see where we go and where we're able to build the infrastructure to support what they're trying to do. Because that I can do what I do and visit with you all. It's what they do on the street that you'll remember the most, is that you feel comfortable. I hope you feel comfortable, because I do. I moved my family to a dense, overgrown South Hills neighborhood in Eugene, one way in. But I trust that my people will take care of my family. I trust our fire department. I look forward to, I'm excited to solve the governance problem, honestly, one way or another. So that our fire department can plan for where to go, how to support the workforce, how to recruit the new workforce, how to meet the challenges in the future. Like, that's the exciting thing, is to turn the corner and figure out how we're funding, how we're planning, and actually see that instead of chasing. And I feel like the team that's come up to help me do that, we can't. It takes time, and that's the thing we hate most of all. Right, we measure by minutes. Time is our enemy. And so you get into these administrative roles, like, why isn't this done tomorrow? That's obvious right there. It doesn't work that way, and it you know, you gotta get conditioned to that, but so yeah, the workforce, most of all, the new folks, just like most industries, like, oh, I need people coming in there. They don't have the juice, they don't have the, maybe, these young guys and gals coming in and their bravado for the job, and they're really getting back to the roots of why we do what we do, is actually pretty awesome. I think we see it across, the new generations are, you know, they saw the technology, they got the technology, and they're like, well, I want the connection, I want the people, I want the service, I want to make a difference and do things, and they're killing it. We just have to give up on a little bit, they look a little different, they like to wear different things, they don't like to be cut clean, be perfect in the uniform. If we let go of that, they're actually pretty happy, making their designs and their hats and making fun of each other. And having competition, it's great, and I appreciate what they're doing, so. So yeah, chocolate, it's amazing.
Oh, chocolate.
So yeah, I owned a chocolate factory. One thing, about firefighters, I was talking at least this, I would say if you tested us all, we all have ADD or some version thereof. Because it's what we do, right? It's like, we're bored, bam, go, do this thing, do that thing. And when you leave it, it's done. Our hobbies are kind of the same way. It's like all in, all the time, because you have some free time, right? Toured a chocolate factory, couple years later, my wife bought me a pound of beans, and I'm like, well, I understood the process, so I baked them in the oven, I peeled them, and I beat the heck out of them in a food processor, which she was worried I was gonna destroy, but it didn't. It tasted kind of okay, so like, well, now we buy this little machine that supposedly will turn it into rich. It did. And then I got really into the social and economic impact of chocolate, and what a terrible commodity across the world. What it's done to people and those, and so I got connected with a couple of different brokers who their whole goal was to charge you way more for the beans so that they could invest in the community. Some of them get to value added factories at the growth site. Some places they never even tried chocolate, the end product of what their families have been growing for years. And so that the story of the bean became exciting to me. All this chocolate around the house, my wife's like, what are you doing?
It's all her fault.
I'm making chocolate. And so we started to sell it, that spooled up really fast, became popular, we opened a storefront. Difference between a chocolate maker, chocolatier, chocolate maker takes the beans, roasts them, makes it into chocolate, a chocolatier takes the chocolate, makes it into something you really wanna eat. I mean, my thing was single origin bars, dark the better in some cases. I got drawn into things where people, because part of it was our son has food sensitivities, dyes, all those things, preservatives, so it's like, well, let's make our own candy, let's do these things, and the group of people that we were partnered with, hey, can you make a white chocolate without soy? And we were like, chocolate gross. Well, okay, and I learned that cocoa butter is either deodorized or not. A non-deodorized cocoa butter smells like the essence of the bean it came from. So you use that and use whole milk powder instead of skim milk powder. Use good sugar and you make a white chocolate out of that. Oh my God. A little orange oil in it. Lemon. And so it became really fun. And it was one of the first like dedicated hobby outlets I had for the job. And by that time I was a battalion chief. I was running a union. Had a lot going on, everybody on my phone all the time, and chocolate didn't complain. May have had bourbon in the chocolate factory, help with that, but it really became a thing. I had to sell it, or if I didn't sell it, I had to shut it down, because to take this role, I needed to move to the city of Eugene. We were in Cottage Grove, and so it was close to the house. Our house was on Main Street, chocolate factory was on Main Street. It was great. It just wasn't gonna work out in this space, so we shut it down, but it was just my place to go experiment. And the smallest maker I ever, or grower I got beans from, was from Trinidad. He was able to produce one 55-kilo bag, and I got. And they were the most, you could tell that was his love, because every one of those beans that was in that bag was perfect. So I made a lot of chocolate, I had a lot of fun with it. I still have most of, outside of some like big machines. And my most favorite 3D holiday molds, like It will come back someday, for sure, and coffee. I learned to refine coffee with cocoa butter and sugar like I refined chocolate. Curious, would it work? It did. And this was like, there's the cracked coffee bar, then a mocha bar with milk chocolate, white chocolate was latte, dark chocolate was buzz. And I'll tell you, I'm sure you know, chocolate has the bromine in it. It is, chemically similar to either amphetamines or coffee. We'll say coffee just for the. But to that point, eat too much of it. I mean, it will generate about, and especially fresh in the machines, and that's where I ate most of my chocolate, was testing it through the process. Not a huge chocolate fan. Until my wife started taking my chocolate and making bonbons and truffles and Snickers bars and during COVID, she started doing all that. That was a struggle. 5,000 hot cocoa bombs that year. That was for me. And I sat there and enjoyed my bourbon and folded boxes. And I was happy to do it. It was just something that wasn't nice. It wasn't tragedy, it wasn't catastrophe, it wasn't budgets. That's the history of chocolate. Registered Garden did actually pretty cool spread on our business, and chocolate several years ago, so it's a lot of fun.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Before we leave, just let you know, October, next meeting, I think it's October 16th, on that Thursday, we are actually joining the Eugene City Club at the Wow Hall, for our second in the series on Franklin Boulevard and the Riverfront Development. So City of Eugene, City Club will be hosting us, we'll be at that Wow Hall noon. Hope to see you there, and thanks everybody for attending today. Hey, John.
How you doing?